Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm curious if you or anyone you know has either experienced burnout in the past, or maybe you feel like you're just incredibly burnt out right now, or maybe you feel like you're on your way to burnout. Burnout is increasingly common. It's a really hot topic. A lot of people are talking about it. And today I want to talk about why a lot of the recommendations you might hear for burnout, such as, well, you just need to work less, you need to delegate more, you need to get less off your plate or more off your plate, you need to have other people help you out. That doesn't really quite get to where we need to be for burnout. All those things are helpful, but we're missing a couple really key things, and we're going to dive into this a little bit today. So burnout was actually a term that was coined, I think, in the 70s or so, and there's three parts to burnout. So part number one is this idea of emotional exhaustion. You've just been caring for too much for too long. You're tired emotionally. Number two is this idea of you just don't have the resources, the ability, the desire to care for anybody else or anything else in any capacity. So this kind of, you're just completely removed from the ability to care and have empathy. And number three is this sort of sense of futility, that it doesn't matter what you do, you always feel like nothing is going to move forward, you're not going to have any impact, you're not making any difference. And so that's what burnout looks like in people. But when we look at what causes burnout, it's actually a combination of stress, so really high chronic stress, and emotion. And when we talk about burnout, we often talk about it just in the context of stress. So in ways that we need to lower stress and reduce stress and address stress. And all of those are important, but we also need to address this emotional picture of burnout, because burnout at its core, there's a really fundamental emotional piece that needs to be talked about. And so today I want to talk actually about the two of them. I'm going to talk about stress. I'm going to talk about emotion, what you can do to kind of start moving yourself, either preventing burnout or through it and recovering from it if you feel like you're experiencing it at the moment. So stress. There's two types of stress, acute stress and chronic stress. Acute stress is stress that you feel in the moment. So let's say you're walking across the street and a car comes down the street at you. That would be acute stress. Acute stress has a very specific defined cycle. So there's a very specific beginning, middle, and an end. Chronic stress does not. And when you think about the things that stress people out chronically, so these are things that are stressful for, over years, decades, maybe your life. So things like parenting, taking care of family members, money, relationships, your job, all of those things, different stress levels for different people, but all of those things generally people find stressful to some degree. And none of them really end. Parenting doesn't really end. Money problems don't really end, right? There's no clear definition. And so part of the stress aspect of it is tricking your brain a little bit into thinking that the stresses aren't bothering you anymore, that those stresses have come to an end. So there are 6 things I'm going to recommend that you introduce even just a little bit here and there into your daily life to help trick your brain that these chronic stresses aren't bothering you all the time. Number 1 is physical activity. So when we think about acute stress, car coming at you, what do? You jump out of the way. A lot of acute stress has this outlet of exercise or activity. So if you're running or you're jumping or you're punching or you're kicking or whatever it looks like, depending on the situation. But that is something that's really lacking in chronic stress. So when you're stressed out in your commute on the way home, you're not swerving your car into other cars, you're not punching people, you're not fighting, you're not doing that kind of thing. So physical activity every day is a really, really important part of just physically releasing those stress hormones. So that might look like getting out of your car and running around it 5 times after you get home from a commute. It might look like you go and get a good punching bag in your house. Maybe it's a trip to the gym. Maybe it's a run. Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's some yoga. Whatever that physical activity looks like for you, moving your body every day is important for a number of reasons, but it's a very, very important part of stress management and preventing and treating burnout. Big time. Doesn't need to be incredibly strenuous, but just physical movement is so, so crucial. Number 2 is crying and or screaming. I know this sounds uncomfortable. I'm sure when I say this, you think, oh my God, I can't do that. Because who sits at their office and screams at the top of their lungs? Probably nobody. And I'm not going to recommend that you do that unless you have the space to do it, in which case, knock yourself out. But verbalizing our stress Verbalizing, ties into the emotion as well, is another really good way to deal with this. So if you've ever had a stressful day and you come home and you just have a really good cry, like a body racking sobs, like sob fest, at the end of it, you feel better. You feel relief. And there's a reason for that. There's a really great article. I'm going to share a link in the description below of a group of moms that went out to a football field in Massachusetts and just screamed at the top of their lungs and how therapeutic it was. So maybe warn your neighbors if you're going to go into your backyard and scream, but crying or screaming is actually really, really helpful when it comes to stress and burnout. Number 3 is dancing or singing. I'll say dancing and singing, moving your body, moving your lungs. There's a lot to dancing and singing that can be helpful, but if you can just put on some music and dance around your kitchen and sing along with it, that is really stress reducing. Number 4 is actually affection. So part of this stress cycle is recognizing the fact that you're safe. So when a car's, speeding down at you, when you jump onto the sidewalk, you realize, okay, the car didn't hit me, I'm safe now. And that's a really important part of the stress cycle. And that can be a hard thing to recognize when it comes to chronic stress, right? When you think about commuting and money troubles and your job stresses and everything like that. So one of the ways to get around that is affection. Sharing affection with, it doesn't need to be a partner, but sharing like a 6-second kiss or a 20-second hug with a partner or a friend or a parent or a child, or there's even really great research to show that snuggling your pet can really lower your stress hormones. But a 6-second kiss or a 20-second hug in particular, it doesn't need to be that. You don't have to set a timer, but you're not going to share affection like that with someone that you don't feel safe with. And so part of finishing the stress cycle, of closing out the stress cycle, is feeling safe. And affection can be a really great way to do that. And number 5 is actually creating. So this kind of goes along with that a little bit. But when we are stressed, we're not worried about creating. You're not worried about your drawing or your art or whatever it is when you're really stressed out. And so finding a little bit of space each day for creating is really important, because again, it's going to tell our body that we're safe. So that creating might mean drawing or painting, but it could mean music. It could mean cooking. It could mean crafts. It could mean building. It could really mean anything to you that feels like it's being creative. Something that just lets your brain and your body do whatever you feel is natural to you, that you feel like you're creating something, is very, very therapeutic. And finally, number 6 is a mindfulness practice every day. I've talked about this before. I'll probably talk about it again, but just incorporating even some sort of deep breathing exercise every day is incredibly helpful to lower stress hormones, and to help you kind of recognize the fact that you're safe, you're secure, and that you're okay. So that's the stress side of things. But what about the emotional side of things? Because remember, a lot of the time when we talk about burnout, we talk about it strictly from how do we reduce the stress in our lives? We need to actually address the stress in our lives. We can't just lower it. We have to know how to deal with it, but also the emotion. So humans experience a lot of different emotions, and a lot of them aren't always fun, right? So joy, happiness, excitement, those are wonderful emotions, but fear, anger, disgust, those are not so comfortable emotions. We don't like experiencing negative emotions, and people around us don't like it when we experience negative emotions. So properly processing emotions is incredibly difficult. So when I say we need to deal with the emotional side, it's not a little thing I'm saying. It's actually a really big job. And I would recommend to you that if you feel any level of, severe burnout or emotional exhaustion, you might want to find support for this. A psychologist, a psychotherapist, a counselor, a social worker, someone that can kind of help you understand the emotional side to what you're going through and help you process it. If processing emotions is something that you are kind of sort of aware of and you'd like to dive into it more, here are the 3 things I'm going to recommend for how to do this sort of as a DIY, knowing that you may have spent the last 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever years not really processing emotions, and it's not your fault. It's because we live in a society that doesn't really recognize this well. So Here are the things I'd suggest on the emotion side. Number one is awareness. Just being aware that you are experiencing emotions and that your emotions change is the first step. I always say you can't change or fix or optimize anything that you're not aware of. Emotional regulation and emotional awareness is right up there too. So feeling in your body, how does happiness feel to you? How does joy feel to you? How does sadness? How does fear? How does anger? What do all those things feel like in your body? What do they feel like in your stomach? You know, there's always that like gut feeling that goes along with emotions. No judgment necessary, literally just being aware of, oh, I'm changing into mad right now, or I'm changing into happy right now. Being aware of those emotions is key. The second part of that, though, is naming them, identifying them and naming them. So sitting there and saying, okay, I feel mad right now, or I feel hopeful right now, or whatever the emotion is that you're experiencing, learning how it feels in your body and being able to put a name to it is very, very helpful. A lot of us, like I mentioned, are not great at processing emotions, but I've seen recently, and I don't think that this is going to change no matter when you're watching this video, there is a ton of anger and rage in the world right now, has been for a long time, probably will be for a long time. And I honestly believe that much of that anger and rage is coming from fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of things being different, fear of not having control over certain situations. Anger and rage are absolutely emotions that people experience, but a lot of fear can drive some of those things too. So the same might be true for you. You might be experiencing sadness, but maybe it comes out as anger. Or you might be experiencing loneliness, but maybe it's coming out as rage. So if you can name the emotions you're experiencing, that gives you so much power over the experience and over how to process them appropriately. I can't even stress the importance of that. And the number 3 is just to let the emotion happen. Emotions, none of them are permanent. They're all completely temporary, the good and the bad. You're going to be moving through them all. So if you are experiencing happiness, sit and enjoy it. If you are experiencing, disgust, sit and be with it. You can enjoy it if you want to, but just to let it happen. Know that it's not permanent. Know that it's not going to last forever, but just sitting with it and allowing it to happen. None of this is easy, right? So these are all steps that you can take, things that you can incorporate every day to help improve either symptoms of burnout or prevent you from going into burnout. But none of this is easy, and it actually takes a lot of work. And I'm going to challenge you a little bit on this, because if you're experiencing burnout, chances are that you're someone who tends to give a lot. You take care of other people around you. You take care of everyone else's needs before your own. And I'm here to tell you that, which a lot of other people have given the message, but no one is going to advocate for you except for you. None of the people in your life subconsciously are going to come to you to say, you know what, I think you need some space. I think you need some time. You're the one that has to create that time and make that space for yourself. So it doesn't need to be an incredible amount of time or space, but just to be advocating for yourself to say, no, I need this, I need this, I need to start working on this. These are things I absolutely need to be a functional person and a great partner, parent, friend, child, whatever your role is. Advocating for yourself is where this has to start. From my perspective, Dr. Emily Nagoski does incredible work on burnout. I'm going to share a link for her video, one of her videos on burnout below, that I think everybody needs to watch. But if you are struggling with sleep as a result of burnout, or if lack of sleep is exacerbating burnout symptoms or any of these symptoms, I'm also going to drop a link below for you to book a free sleep assessment call with me. So if sleep is something that you struggle with, hop on a 45-minute call with me. We'll talk about, where you're at, where you want to be, and there's and some resources I can share with you, because there are tons of resources out there available to support you for burnout or anything, sleep, anything that you're experiencing, but you're the one that has to reach out and make that thing happen. So go book that appointment right now. I can't wait to meet you. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything else you'd like to know about burnout. I hope you're taking care of yourself, and I hope you have a really great day.